Now let me introduce you to another interesting feature of Excel, which is about naming of cells and ranges. Now when you speak about naming of cell, think about this. Every cell has its own name. For example, the one which I've clicked on, it's A1. Over here you see it's A1. And now if I were to randomly click here, it's E14 and that's it. So this box that you see over here is the name box, which gives you the name. Now, why do I need to use this? Well, generally whenever we refer to a cell, it's often the address or the part of that cell that is referred. For example, here we have some production metrics. Okay, let's take this as a case and try to understand how well we can use the naming conventions for any cells. Firstly, we have some production metrics of one of the company factories, which is a shoe manufacturing company. Now, hourly production of this factory is around 10 pairs of shoes every hour. And production hours per day is 16 hours. Production days per year is 340, wherein we generally have 365 or 366 days in a year, of which around 25 to 26 days seems to be a downtime for the factory. Hence, they are operating for 340 days in a year. Now, we've come to know that the sales for the year from the manufactured goods of this factory is around $4.25 million. Now, I would like to know what is the total production in a year? Or rather, I would say total annual production. And I would also like to know what is the daily sales of the products that are manufactured in this factory. On an average, what would be the daily sales volume or the sales figure? Well, the easiest way would be we would just take this 10 multiplied by production hours per day multiplied with the production days per year. Here we have this. It's 54,400. That's every year the company or this factory manufactures 54,400 units or pairs of shoes. That's good. Now let's talk about the daily sales. So we have the sales for the year and we divide it by 365. Well, we can do that, or else if they say that the business days per year, if that was 340, then it would have been 12,500 for each day. So instead of production days per year, I would say business days per year. That would be better. Now here we have daily sales, that's around 12,500. Now take a look at this formula here. We have these numbers here and it's pretty easy for us to find out what each of these cells are referring to. Same way over here. But what if this is the only sheet which is given for your inputs and you are supposed to get your details over here and not in the same worksheet? Now how would that happen? Total production for the year, I would say equal. We'll repeat the same process. It is nothing but the hourly production rate multiplied by production hours per day multiplied by business days per hour. And then average daily sales, that's sales for the year divided by business days per year. Well, we did get that, but take a look at this formula here. Sheet 1 C4, Sheet 1 C5, and Sheet 1 C6. Now just imagine you're handing over this to someone who would be reviewing it and using it for any future business decision making or maybe in a certain meeting. It would be really inconvenient for them to just try to scroll and maybe navigate to a different worksheet and try to find out what does the C4, C5, and C6 refer to. They belong to C1, Sheet 1. So let's go to Sheet 1, C4, C5, C6. Okay, these are the things that have been multiplied and correlate to them. Well, that's the way how they would want to map it and try to understand what exactly is happening over here. Similarly, average daily sales, here you have C7 divided by C6. They will have to go back and now that's quite inconvenient. Now we also know that it's not 365 days in a year, but it's 340 as of now. So we might consider dividing it by 340 for now, and it solves the purpose. But what if later on someone comes up and says, like, you know what, it's not 340 days in a year, we are actually working for 350 days in a year. So maybe you want to just change this to 350 and see if the numbers are changing. Well, here it's not changing. So switching between the worksheets is often quite an inconvenience. And take a look at this formula, the reference. It's quite a lengthy one. And if compared to this is quite simple and short, although you don't know what exactly C4, C5, C6 unless and until it's in front of you. Now, what if you're working on a real lengthy worksheet and you're somewhere down over here and you have that C4 multiplied by C5 multiplied by C6. Now, you might have this formula over here and it would also say total production or something like annual production. Okay, but now what if I want to dig into the components and see what all things have been considered while calculating the annual production? C4, C5, C6. I'll have to just scroll up and try to hunt for this. Right now it's pretty easy, but if you have too many numbers or too many worksheets, navigating and keeping a tab on numbers is quite cumbersome. It's very difficult. So what I recommend is better give a name to the cells and make the best use of it, especially the ones which you might be frequently using. Let me tell you how. You have production hours per day, and that's 16. And this is C5. The name is C5, but how about me changing this to hours per day? I just need to click over here in this name box, clear this off. I would say hours per day. Now, either you can give the name this way or you can use an underscore to separate each word, and that's fine there as well. Well, in case if you want to use spaces, take a look at this. It gives you an error. You must enter a valid reference if you want to go or type a valid name for the selection. So whatever name you give, you cannot use spaces there. So I would say hours per day. Now this is my way of naming things over here, wherein the first letter of each word is in capitals, so it becomes much more legible. Now if I were to use an underscore, it just makes my name look slightly longer, so I just avoid that. But that's up to you, that's absolutely acceptable. That's totally dependent on the way how you practice and how you maintain things. So I give it a name as hours per day. I hit enter, and here we have this. Now, if I click on this, it's C4, but if I click on this, it's no longer C5, but it's hours per day. Similarly, can I make this as days in year? Business days. Let's try this out. C6, now it will be days in year. I hit enter, and here we have this. This is B6. Now I move my cursor here, and it's days in year. Now take a look at this formula here. It's C4 multiplied by C5 multiplied by C6, right? Now let me try this again. I say C4 was hourly production multiplied by production hours per day. Wow, take a look at this. Multiplied by business days per year, that's days in year. And the moment you give a name to a particular cell or a range, Excel identifies it, and whenever you're typing, for example, if I were to type this manually, like multiplied by days, you see I see a list of functions here. Well, at the same time I type days, and I have this here, the name. It has a different icon, so Excel has recognized this as a name and hit enter, and here we have this. Well, you might say that it still looks lengthy, but it's easier to read now. Let me show you how. I'll undo this. Let me take you here. Here I say equals to, I have hourly production rate multiplied by hours per day multiplied by days in year. Hit enter, you have this. Now the beauty over here is that whomever you hand over this file to or this data to, they might have to struggle with C4 because we did not name it. Maybe you might want to give a name to that as well, but they definitely know whatever numbers that you have here it's been multiplied with hours per day and days in year. Now, when you're talking about total production for the year, and you have the year and hours per day, it's most likely that what you have multiplied over here is production per hour. Logically, that's how it would fit in. So maybe A, they would try that, or might be just go back and check out. But at least they are for sure that this is what it means, hours per day and days in year. Now, here we can apply the same thing. Here we have the sales for the year divided by days in year. That's it. Now, whoever reads these formulas, they can easily identify what they represent here. Well, in case if they want to just go back and see, they can also take a quick look here and they can see. Now, just imagine someone comes up and says it's not 350 days in a year. Okay, we are actually working for 345 days in a year. Just need to enter the number and that's it. Excel will take care of that. It's here, update it. And that's not it. Sorry, please get that. And that's not all to it. There's one more interesting benefit of this. Now, what if I were to copy this formula and paste it down here? Take a look at this formula. It's still days in year division, divided by days in year. And the numerator is sheet C18. Earlier it was C7 and now to 18. It was C7 and now it's referring to this cell here. So the numerator reference did change because we did not lock it with the dollar reference. But what about the name? We did not apply any dollars either. That means in this entire file, irrespective of whichever worksheet that you might be working on, maybe the 55th worksheet, still, anytime you call days in year, you get the value. Anytime you call hours per day, you have that value. That's the beauty over there. And anyone who wants to read these functions, they can easily identify what they mean. No headache of using the dollar signs and no hassle of trying to understand what each reference is pointing out to. Now, this is called the naming of cell reference.